Welcome to Fireside Chats, where we speak with Canadian physician entrepreneurs about their journey and experiences in medical innovation. This series is brought to you by the Physician Innovator Network, and I'm your host, Anurag Dalai. I want to introduce our guest, Dr. Sandy Whitehouse. Dr. Whitehouse is a pediatrician and adolescent medicine physician with over 30 years of clinical research and leadership experience. She is the CMO, or the Chief Medical Officer and co-founder of Tickit Health, an award-winning innovative digital solution that leverages self-supported data to improve communication and knowledge transfer between patients and providers, particularly for historically underserved populations. Tickit Health is based on three pillars: digitally empathetic design to engage all people as partners in care, actionable patient and population management for providers and organizations, and flexible integration into healthcare systems. Since 2012, Tickit Health has grown across a variety of verticals, including healthcare, education, and social services, and has also been successfully implemented worldwide. Dr. Whitehouse was one of 50 women to receive Inspiring 50 Canada Award in 2018, which celebrates inspirational female role models in tech and innovation. In 2019, Tickit Health won the Canadian Channel Innovation Award for Diversity and Inclusion. She takes pride in leading an all-women management team in the field of healthcare. Dr. Whitehouse, welcome to Fireside Chats.
Thank you very much, Anu, for that introduction, and to Alexandra, who isn't here, and Sophie and Chance for putting together this really important forum. And for everybody, this is, I heard, a fireside chat. It's supposed to be fairly informal. So luckily I have a fireside. So we're right on target. The fire isn't on, it's a bit warm, more spring-like here today, and it's St. Patrick's Day. So wishing everybody I found some green beer or a green beer can. Nice. But I hope you're relaxing and you spend a relaxing time over this next little while. Zoom can be pretty tough at the end of the day. Totally.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. And that's great, actually. This is the first time we've got an actual fireplace in our fireside chat. So that's a moment, that's a reason to celebrate for sure. Awesome. I guess we'll get right into it. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into healthcare innovation?
Yeah, so I think I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I had a full medical career before I sort of moved into this area. And I'm a bit of a unicorn as well, because I've been doing this now for coming up for 9 years. So, really even before, startups were really a thing. But I've been interested in right through medicine, even from when I was a resident, in improving workflow processes and in improving communication. I thought the science was very good, but the communication was often poor. So even when I was a resident, I was creating neonatal transfer summaries. And then when I managed the emergency department at BC Children's, we did a simulation for patient flow. But it was in the early 2000s when I was working in adolescent medicine, and we had there was a standard of care to interview patients, and I knew it was being done poorly, and we had a couple of teams in the diabetic clinic who were pregnant, and then I really felt that was quite preventable had they had better communication with their providers. And that really started me on this journey towards creating Tickit Health.
So it sounds like you had some seeds planted during your medical journey from fairly young. Like you're thinking about these things through your training, and then once you thought of Tickit Health, like how did you go about turning that idea into an actual business?
Yes, well, that's another. Each of these are stories in and of themselves. And yes, I was always pushing in healthcare when my clinical work, and I found that research was really a slow journey, and the grant processes were often fickle. So basically what happened is that we had some opportunities to work with Emily Carr University of Art and Design, and I was interested in creating these communication tools, and the iPad had not been out for very long. So that's how long ago or how adaptable we have become to technology. And so we started to talk about creating a tool where we could screen adolescents and do some psychosocial screening, which was this gold standard interview. And so initially I had thought that we we created created the ideas, and then we created a paper-based prototype. And then the question came, well, how was this going to move forward? And my husband had developed and actually successfully exited a medical device company. He had produced some coronary artery stents, and so I wasn't unfamiliar with the sort of that idea of moving into business. And Emily Carr University was very keen on their ideas being commercialised. And then my son was graduating from university and was incredibly entrepreneurial and really liked what we were doing. And so I actually co-founded the business with him. Digital health is very different from medical device development, but that's how. But we decided to go towards commercialization rather than sort of the academic route, because I also wanted to build robust and strong technology and something that could be used in lots of different settings. And I knew very much that often research sort of is a short flame, and but that work doesn't continue, particularly in technology.
Well, it seems like a lot of unique crossroads that kind of led to an opportune moment you took advantage of. That's really cool. For the you were saying you worked with the Emily Carr Institute of Arts and Technology and things like that. That must be a cool experience. Like, what did you learn from that collaboration that you applied with Tickit Health?
So, well, it was really interesting. So I had the opportunity to meet a very talented student, and actually our first prototype was her grad project. So I was able to give her that clinical direction, and we're a design first company, and she was able to produce the designs. She's actually the health innovation designer at at IDEO, which is a really leading design company in San Francisco now. So but when we started, she was just beginning. And so she was able to do that design research and do a lot of testing. And we worked collaboratively over a year getting the basic prototype up and running. But what I did learn was that designers don't necessarily know a lot about technology. And so we had our designs before we had our development. And Emily Carr was not able to provide that technology background. So our first, my son and my first job after because he had business skills but not development skills, was to get a development team to be able to build our prototype.
Great. As I was doing a bit of research on Tickit Health and browsing your website, I noticed the phrase digital empathy came up quite a bit and seemed like it's one of the core themes of your business. I was wondering if you could expand on what digital empathy means and how it came to be that was the kind of thing that Tickit Health operated around.
Yeah, so it's also an interesting question, because we've only been using that term for the last couple of years, and for people who are starting up companies, I think trying to work out what your core values are and how to describe them in a way that's unique is often difficult. And I think that digital empathy is sort of gives you an idea, but you don't have it's not excuse me, it's not it's something that you want to ask a bit more about, just as you did, Anu, like, well, what really is this? And so, and we found that we've had a lot of interest just in that term. What it is that we wanted to do, as I said before, design first in our technology, and we were very interested in the user, that is the patient, but now we're doing students and other populations as well. But we were very interested in making technology that very much aligned with those users, even though our business is oriented towards organizations. So Tickit Health is a B2B business. We sell to organizations, but our but our value comes in that part of being that communication factor, which is digital empathy. And it is right through our design in terms of accessibility, different languages, configuration for culture, and looking at different populations and what they would need or want to be able to engage in self-reported data collection.
Well, what's been the receptiveness of Tickit Health as you've rolled it out, domestically or worldwide? What kind of feedback have you gotten, and have you used any of that to iterate on the technology?
Oh yes, so we built an iOS native prototype to start, and then we've actually gone through 3 generations of iteration. And we also have worked collaboratively with a number of universities on creating the evidence base for those iterations. So we've worked with human factor design department at the University of Washington and Sick Kids, and so quite a few different organizations. And through that, and we were very lucky in that we had sales in, our first client was Boston Children's Hospital. One of our clients after that was Seattle Children's. We've had a bit less luck in Canada, and we also didn't look at BC initially because of potential issues around conflict of interest, which there's whole other topic. But through those early, whenever we would have a client, firstly, we would try to get them to evaluate what we were doing. Then we maintained very good relationships with our clients so that we could get that feedback and create iterations. And one of the things that in the business world that you say is we've had very little churn. So once somebody picks up our tools and starts using them, they tend to stick with them. And that has helped create really great collaborative partnerships.
Oh, interesting. And as you've reached into different markets and different countries, have you noticed any similarities or differences or challenges, in Canada versus the US or in other parts of the world?
Oh yeah, huge differences. So I think that and it has to do with how the healthcare systems are structured. So in Canada, because of the public healthcare system, the change and interest in innovation tends to be fairly slow. In the US, it's way more dynamic. Australia is I'm Australian, so it's been easy to engage with Australia, and that's sort of in between. There are different regulatory requirements for different countries, different procurement strategies in different countries, and different considerations, again, about how the software would be used or what its value would be. All the way through, I think there are this common thread of wanting to use digital empathy and wanting to improve efficiency and improve outcomes. I mean, that would be the sort of a common thread.
Interesting. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you started Tickit Health around 9 years ago, more or less. Yeah. Since then, how's the healthcare landscape changed? Has that? What can you comment on how things might have changed for the better or the worse, or and how that might have shaped your decisions carrying Tickit Health forward?
Yeah. So I think that the landscape has changed quite a lot. Some of it has not changed hardly at all. So, healthcare organizations use old legacy software. There's decision by committee. They're conservative and risk averse and slow. So, I mean, I think that is all kind of the same. I think that what has changed, though, is that when we started, this idea of technology innovation was, what we were trying to do was so far out of regular practice that we were really spending our time educating people. We, even before we got a product to sell. And one of the things that happened to us was that people made a choice between doing nothing or using our platform. Now it's a more competitive, in our field anyway, it's a more competitive market. So, now it's between choosing us and choosing someone else. So I think the field has become way more crowded. I think that COVID just turned the accelerator on for everybody about how to look at digital health and new ways of doing things, and opened up a number of doors. I still think there's challenges for smaller businesses than for the very larger companies. I mean, that's that risk aversion thing. So I think there's similarities and differences, but the whole entrepreneurship concept has just grown logarithmically since we started.
And as you mentioned, there's been more players in the space, maybe more competitors and things like that. Does your team now have to kind of keep an eye on what other people are doing to kind of differentiate yourselves, or do you just kind of keep your head down and focus on your own mission, or a bit of both?
No, so I think when I started also, I felt that if there were competitors, I actually found it a bit threatening. I thought, well, how am I going to find a space when there are competitors? Now I know that I embrace competitors because I know I'm going in the right direction because there's this competitive landscape. So actually having competition is validation. And I really want to keep a good eye on my competitors. I want to work out who they are and keep a really good eye on them because you can learn but differentiate from them. And so I think that is what you were saying, Anu, which is that you want to make sure that you want to keep this unique value proposition, but you also want to understand what that competitive market is. You can learn a lot from them.
For sure. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I know I have kind of the same. If I see a lot of players in the space, I might get a little bit intimidated. But no, that's a good point. Where if there's a lot of players in the space, it's probably it's worthwhile creating a nice solution for it because there's a lot of interest. I know I was going through again your website and kind of learn about the company, and I noticed mental health being mentioned, especially yourself as a pediatrician working with adolescent populations, and the business self working with underserved populations as well as being one of the core offerings for this target service. Can you talk a little bit about mental health? And I guess kind of, like one hand, we have social media, which, a lot of people can argue that exacerbates certain mental health issues. On the other hand, we are using technological tools to also alleviate mental health. So technology is kind of like everywhere. Does technology, have a role in this, for the good and bad? Personally speaking, I'm so happy that when I was in high school, I didn't have Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. And I can't imagine, growing up as a teenager now in that environment, or, if you're a parent, I can't imagine either. For my age, it was just having a phone, but, the whole digital ecosystem has changed so much. But yeah, I guess kind of a broad question. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question. And there's so many ways to look at it. So I'm going to talk about the business perspective, and then I'll talk about the societal perspective, because I think that there are some interesting things in both. So when we started, mental health was part of what I was very interested in with young people. So I talked about, I sort of said we started because a couple of kids got pregnant in the diabetes clinic, but really the screening that we were doing was around mental health screening in a more holistic sort of way. And at that time, mental health was something you didn't talk about. The other area that people have, the gender thing, we do screening, and I don't know how many long conversations I've had about how you can represent people for the change that's happened in gender. But going back to mental health, there was not very much conversation around mental health. There was certainly very little funding towards mental health, and supporting people who had mental health issues. And so that has been an enormous change over the time that over this last 9 years, and so I think that from a business perspective, it sort of feels like people have caught up with us rather than because we've been sort of looking at that for quite a long time. And that's exciting because you know, it again validates what you're doing. From the is how's technology, what's it doing? Well, I just today watched a screener for a film called Screen Ages, which is about sort of the impact of social media and technology and screen time on young people. And I do think that the technology is playing a really is really challenging us all and is not healthy for us. On the other, and so sometimes I do wonder about having created a technology company that looks at mental health, but I think that technology is just a tool, and that it can be very useful as well. And it's something that people, I think we just have to live with it. It's something that's here that we have to live with, and that young people, well, all populations now relate to it. And so it does democratize access for a lot of things. And so I think there's a lot of good parts to it as well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a complex issue with a lot of different, areas to it. But thanks for sharing your thoughts. Really interesting. And kind of going back to your entrepreneurial journey, what's been the most difficult part of being an entrepreneur, and is that what you thought would be the most difficult part?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I don't think I didn't know what I was getting into. So I can't say, oh, I expected this or I didn't expect that. I think that having had leadership roles in the hospital, when I moved into managing a company, of course, there's sort of human resources issues and trying to find developers and things like that that have been very difficult and challenging. And I think that and then there was a huge learning curve just about running a business and how to meet all the different parts of what a business involves, the importance of marketing, how to get a procurement over the hurdles so that you've got, so you've got sales coming in. That's also in what sales strategies one's going to use. I think they're difficult. But right back at the beginning, I met a very successful entrepreneur, and one of the things he said to me was that product is only 10% of your company. And I honestly did not believe him. I sort of that was one of those over my head type of comments. But I just see now that the product is very important, and it's very important for me that the product is very good. But there's so much else in the business side that I've learned over these 9 years. So I think that's it's not the most difficult, but has been the most interesting.
Did you pursue an MBA prior to?
No,
okay.
I did a Master of Communications, but I did not do an MBA.
Awesome. As I think you're the first person on our Fireside chat without an MBA. So, and everyone who's mentioned that, I've asked everybody, you've done an MBA, has it helped? Would you go back and do it again? And everyone's kind of said similar things where, yeah, certain things have been useful, but really it was just to convince themselves that, I can do this. Kind of that self-validation kind of thing. So did you ever feel that you needed extra training, or is it kind of you felt, I'm just going to learn on the job and I have a good support network and that's good enough for me?
Yeah. So I would say now that I deserve an MBA.
Yeah. So executive honorary MBA for sure.
Yeah. So we were fortunate because I was working with my son, he didn't have an MBA, but he had a very good head for business and had done some business courses, but he didn't have an MBA. But and he was very competitive. And we were very lucky to get into some, we got into Startup Health and BT Techs into some accelerators. And through those accelerators, the first round we didn't learn so much, but as we got a little bit more experience, those accelerators and the people and finding mentors really helped us along. So that, I think that I would have no trouble with a marketing plan or a strategic plan or a business plan now. But it was very important to find people along the way who were experts and could provide good advice.
For sure, yeah, it definitely is a team effort, and everyone kind of brings different set of tools, and you learn from each other. I'm sure they would have learned from you, and especially on the clinical side and what you're wanted to build. Mm-hmm. And you're only the second, I think, female guest in our show. I think last time we had Dr. Breanne Everett, and asked her, what's it like being a woman in medical innovation now compared to where you started the business in the past. And so I'm going to ask you the same question. How's that experience been? Any advice you can offer women who are interested or looking to get involved in medical innovation and entrepreneurship in general, I guess?
Yeah. So I think that's also an important question. So I started my career as a physician in pediatrics, and pediatrics is a largely female population. So my peers in the hospital, and we had a head of our department was a woman, the president of the hospital was a woman. So I actually didn't think about being a woman in practice during that career. It changed when I went into becoming an entrepreneur, and I've been much more aware of being a woman and much more. And I think also because I didn't have the MBA, I think that the hardest thing for a woman in this environment is having confidence. And we have a strong female, as you said, strong female management team, and they are really high quality and hardworking. And it's not, they weren't chosen just because they were women. They were chosen, they joined the team because they were really excellent at what they do. But I do think it is somewhat more challenging. I think it's more challenging. So the other interesting thing is if you go to a clinical conference or to, let's say, the Quality Forum in BC, which is sort of like healthcare management, that will be 80% female. If you go to an IT conference, that will be 80% male. And so those gender lines are quite strongly drawn. So if you're trying to sell, so I find that as an all-female male team, in terms of that procurement process, that I think we have some challenges.
And have you seen those pretty blunt lines change over the last decade or so, or has it kind of still been persistent?
I don't think it's changed.
Not much, eh?
I think that still 9 years is fairly
short. And I guess we're just gonna transition our Q&A, but before the last question, it's probably the toughest question you'll ever face, is what do you miss most about Australia?
That's such an easy question. Well, I miss my parents who are alive still, even though they're sort of in their 90s, and that I can't see them now. So that's pretty tough. But I really miss Bondi Beach. I miss a sunny, hot walk along Bondi Beach. And I'm looking forward to a world where we are able to be a bit more mobile.
So we got some few questions here. Thanks for so many questions, you guys. So I'm just going to go through these here and ask them. So Sophia, nice. We got a couple of questions. Sophia's, we'll go with the first one here. If you can only give one tip for emerging physician entrepreneurs, what would it be?
Well, I think it's worth pursuing your dream. That's my one tip. So, do it. Just do it. What's that? The Nike slogan.
Yeah.
I have a lot of other tips, but that would be the first one.
What about tips 2 and 3 then?
Tips 2 and 3. Oh, I think is gather around smart people and listen to them, but trust your gut. And so that would be the second tip. And then the third tip would be to be nimble. So, if don't get stuck, don't go into a rabbit hole.
Nice. I think that last one's is really easy to get stuck in. It's easier said than done. Next question from Fadi Bahodi. Thanks for coming on again. I recognize you from last time, so appreciate it. What is your go-to tip for connecting with mentors as a growing healthcare startup?
I don't think that, I was going to say, I don't think there's a shortage of people giving advice. Sometimes, paying for advice you get better advice if you pay for it. But I think this sort of joining different groups, sort of accelerator groups, like as we did, is worthwhile. I can tell you a little story. My son was living in Toronto when we just started the company, and we had to work out, I knew that privacy and security was really important and that we had to meet all these regulatory standards. But neither of us had the skills. So I said to him, there's a conference at Toronto Airport. I want you to go to the conference. I want you to learn about privacy and security and tell me what you think. So he called me the first day. He said, I don't understand a word of this. I think it's a disaster. And I said, go back. So anyway, he called me the next day. He said, there was this older guy, a bit like you, he seemed really, what he seemed to say, he seemed really smart. He stuttered a bit, but I thought he had some useful stuff, and I think I'm understanding it a bit better. So I said to him, go and talk to him. So Dan went and spoke to this guy, who then became a really great mentor. We were a guinea pig for his startups, and we had since the start, we've had this fantastic relationship. So I think, pick up the phone and call people when you think that they can help you, and you'll be surprised if you're respectful that they will.
Totally. Nice. Yeah, I think people are willing to help. Sometimes you just got to ask. Take that first brave step. I think Martina had a question, but that was answered. So thanks for asking a question, Martina. Hopefully it answered. We got another one from Sophia again. How do you see Tickit Health evolving as there is now increasing focus on diversity, equity, and culturally appropriate patient care?
I think it's sort of like the stars are aligning for us. So we've just done a project with the Métis. We've been working, so we've sort of branched a little bit out of healthcare into social services. We've just done a whole lot of work with the Red Cross. I think that it's just perfect for us. So, and we're really happy that this is happening. So it's good. So I just want to say that I was a delight to do this. But if anyone wants to contact me, they can. I'm sure you have my contact too. If people have some questions, I'm more than happy to sort of be engaged.